Good evening, Central Valley. This is Kevin Little, and this is the first episode of Valley Movers and Shakers on CentralValleyTalk.com. It is a show that is intended to bring you good news for a change. We all need a little bit of good news. We hear bad news all around us on the news and in social media, and we have too much of that. So this show is designed to counterbalance it and to talk about good things that are going on right here in the Central Valley. We are going to host on this show people who are doing positive things to improve our community, to make it a more enjoyable place, people who are accomplishing things of which we as a community can be proud, and people who are blazing a trail and setting an example that hopefully more of us will follow. We've got a lot to be proud about in this community, and that's the purpose of this show, to feature things of which we all can be proud, and since we call the Central Valley our home. A little bit about me. I am an attorney here in town. I've been living in the Central Valley since 1995. I practice law here, and I have an office here, and I'm a firm believer in the Fresno community. It's diverse, wonderful community, not of course without its problems, but we're not here to focus on that. We're here to focus on the great parts. We will have a number of guests on each show, and this is not, even though I'm an attorney, this is not a law-related show. We are going to be talking about things that are of interest to a general audience, and we're also going to attempt to keep it light and entertaining, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. So when we come back, after we're taking our initial break right now, when we come back, we will be featuring attorney Chris Caine, who is a longtime Fresno attorney who has a very interesting past, and he's going to be talking about that. He's going to be talking about his involvement in the community. He's going to be talking about his new building here in the heart of the Tower District, and he's also going to be talking about some causes that are near and dear to him. All positive things, and I think you'll enjoy it, so stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Valley Movers and Shakers. And we have our very first guest, and I'm honored that our first guest is attorney Chris Caine. He is a longtime attorney in Fresno, and I think you're going to enjoy hearing him and what he has to say about his career, about his life that led him to Fresno, about causes near to dear in his heart, and then finally we'll be talking about his exciting new building in the heart of the Tower District. Mr. Caine, welcome.
Hi, good to meet you, Kevin.
Thank you. Thanks for being a guest on our show. I understand that you are a longtime attorney here in Fresno, but the more interesting fact is that you are, I think, the only attorney I know who has practiced law on 3 continents. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about your law career and how you became a lawyer and how your career has taken you to so many different places.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Yeah, I'm kind of proud to say that this is my 45th year in practice of law. I started off in Africa, in Central Africa, in the country that's now known as Zimbabwe. It was earlier on called Rhodesia, which tried to declare independence like the United States, but it didn't work as well for them. No one recognized it, and so.
Is that where you grew up?
That's where I grew up. I was born, grew up there, and my wife was also born in that country, and we got married there. And I pursued a law career, went to the University of London there, an external degree, and I ended up being the equivalent of a district attorney, a deputy district attorney, for a few years before we realized that we needed to move on. And we moved to England, to London.
Right. Now, before we move with you to England, let's talk a little bit about your career in Africa, in Zimbabwe.
Sure.
The legal system there, I'm sure there are some similarities, but I'm sure there are also some notable differences. For those of us, including myself, who have no idea what it's like to be involved in the legal system in Rhodesia, why don't you tell us some of the significant differences?
Okay, yeah. There are many similarities, evidenced by the fact that I was able to pass the bar here in California. It's an English common law system, and so the practice and procedure is similar, but there are certain very important rights, constitutional rights, that we have here that do not exist over there, namely the right for a jury trial. It only applies in the most serious cases, murder or anything that would involve a life sentence. Standard crimes, it's just a judge and maybe two assessors.
So, for instance, if here in our system, if you're charged with something, let's say burglary, and you choose to take your case to the fullest extent here, you have a trial. There, no trial.
Well, you have a trial, but just in front of a judge.
Okay, no jury trial.
No jury. It has to be a pretty serious case. That may have changed more recent years, because I've been out of the country since 1976. So changes could have occurred to the system, but I'm not sure if they would have.
Okay. So how old were you when you decided to leave Zimbabwe and take on another challenge in another continent?
I was 25.
Okay. Still starting out early in your career.
Indeed, yeah.
Okay.
But with no kind of qualifications to practice in England. I had to take the equivalent of the bar there. I had to go to the equivalent of law school all over again, although I'd been to university in Harare in Zimbabwe. And so I had to go through that process and sit the English bar. It's called the solicitor's admission exam, because you're known as a solicitor over there,
Okay.
as opposed to an attorney.
Now, there are, in my understanding, two different types of attorneys in England. You have the solicitors and the barristers. Is that correct?
Correct.
Can you explain to those who maybe don't know necessarily what the distinction is between a solicitor and a barrister?
Sure. The barrister is the one who mainly appears in court. He's your specialist, your trial attorney, if you will. The solicitor is more the kind of general practitioner who briefs the barrister. So in other words, if a client, I was a solicitor, so if a client came to me and said, I've got this dispute with so-and-so, and we can't resolve it, and I've had a summons served on me, I would get the kind of details, do the investigation, put it all together in what's called a brief, and I would then brief a barrister who would take it on and represent the client in that respect.
All right. Now, I hope you don't think this is a silly question, but I'm always trying to think of what maybe are some questions our viewers would have about the English system. And we see the movies and the TV shows where court proceedings in England, the people in court are wearing the wigs. Can you explain what the significance of that is and why it persists to this day?
You mean like the wigs, the
Yes.
robes and all that?
Yeah.
It's summed up in one word: tradition. The tradition that they have over there to give dignity to the courts, distinguish the legal personnel from others. I think it's a bit of snobbery, quite honestly, as well, that they like wearing. They just a little side story. It is a horrible experience to wear one of these horsehair wigs in a hot English summer. They stink. And you have to sit there in a hot courtroom when it does get hot.
So you don't want to maybe get too close to the guy with the oldest wig, perhaps.
No, you don't. Yeah, that's where age is not a good thing.
So how long did you practice law in England?
I was there I actually was admitted as a solicitor in 1979, and then I practiced there till 1992 with a pretty large law firm that it's known as Lee, Bolton and Lee. They had the distinction of, amongst other things, being ecclesiastical lawyers. So as such, they represented the entire Church of England and the Archbishop of Canterbury. Interesting too, they also had ties to the royal family.
Wow.
So if I can just sidetrack for a second, we've got Prince Harry getting married
Right.
to the American lady. They have to get a special marriage license to get married, and that has to be obtained through the registrar, which is what my old law firm did. So we would have these kind of people coming in, and
So someone at your old firm is very likely helping them get their marriage license.
indeed, yeah.
All right.
So,
So what prompted the move from England to the United States?
well, strangely enough, our number one plan when we left Africa was to immigrate to the United States. My wife's family all lived here, her father and that sort of thing. So we only went to England initially because we couldn't get into the United States without a work permit, without a visa. So we had to get that organized. But events overtook us, and I guess got pretty successful in England in the legal circles there, and we ended up staying 16 years. So my wife really said to me after that time, isn't it about time we implemented Plan A and got ourselves over to the United States? So that's what we did.
Okay. And so you, in around 92, you came to the U.S., and how did you specifically end up in the Central Valley?
Well, again, my wife's family lived here, mostly in Modesto and Turlock. They were here. So I knew I'd have to take the California bar, my third bar, in other words. And so it seemed a logical thing to come to the Central Valley to prepare for that and take whatever, the bar passes and that sort of thing. I didn't have to go back to law school, thank goodness.
So, and now 26 years later, you're still here.
I'm still here,
Right.
yeah.
So what sort of a practice do you have here in town?
We specialize in criminal defense. That's all we do.
Okay. So you're in the courtroom a lot.
Yes, a lot. Most days of the week. And we do actually practice throughout the Central Valley, not just in Fresno. We go as far north as Modesto. We've been to Sacramento, and we go as far south as Bakersfield and all points east and west.
Great. And do you practice on your own, or do you have other attorneys who work with you?
No, there's two other attorneys. I have my son, Gary Caine, who is now one of my partner, and we have another attorney, Gabe Pacheco. So there's three attorneys in the office.
Great. All right. Well, I think now we've learned a little bit about your career, and I know that there are some issues that when I asked you to be a guest on my show, you brought up that you thought were very important to talk about. And what are those issues?
Well, what I'd like to say is, I've practiced in all kinds of different areas of criminal defense law and had some pretty good success at that. But the thing that gives me the most satisfaction is representing people who have addiction, drug, alcohol problems, and it's rife throughout the valley, as we all know. And there is nothing more satisfying to me as an attorney to assist and help someone get into a rehab program, avoid jail or prison, and turn their lives around and become not just new individuals, but who will in turn go on to help others as counselors themselves. I have found that those are the success stories that I want to concentrate on now as I'm sort of entering the latter stages of my career.
Okay.
That's where the satisfaction is.
Well, we're going to talk about some of those success stories and go into this issue a little bit more. But before we do that, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Valley Movers and Shakers. Once again, I'm Kevin Little, and we're here with Chris Caine, and we're going to continue our great talk with Mr. Caine. But before we get back into the issue where we left off at, Chris, I know you have a funny story about exactly why and how you ended up here in the Central Valley. And so let me just ask you, why exactly Fresno? Why the Central Valley?
I'm glad you asked that question. It's a question I'm asked a lot. People will hear that I'm from Africa, from London, wherever, and they'll say, what in heaven's name brought you to Fresno of all places? And it's kind of said in a kind of word, why are you here? Stay away, sort of thing. And my response is kind of like this. I've been to all these different places and I've seen what they're like. And I regard Fresno as one of the best places to live anywhere, bar none. I mean, people keep talking in derogatory terms about their own city at times, which to me, I sort of say, well, it's kind of an insult to me to say, is this all you could find? Where I'm saying I could have moved anywhere, but Fresno is my choice, and we've been here since 1992, and we love it here. And I think people are really, they probably need to live somewhere else before they'll make that statement again. And so,
well, that's fantastic. What are some of the things that perhaps initially drew you to the area, and what are some of the things that have kept you here?
The first thing I can say without question is the friendliness of the people. They're welcoming, that they make you feel at home. There's no suggestion of saying, you know, who are you, what are you doing in our city? It's welcome. You know, we're pleased to have you here. And my wife, my family, we love it here for that reason, the friendliness of the place and the fact that there is so much to do here. The weather is, sure, it's hot, but that's just a few short months. There's all kinds of things to do in and around the city. And then, of course, we obviously have the mountains, the sea, and all that, all within striking distance of a day. So, to me, it's a fabulous place to bring up children, to raise a family, and a good, close community is what really attracted us.
Great. And so you're now here for good.
I am.
Like.
I am, yes.
So let's get back to the issue of addiction. Obviously, a very serious problem, not only here in the Central Valley, but everywhere.
Yes.
We've got any number of people struggling with addiction, some of whom have issues in the court system, some of whom may end up in the court system, but maybe are not that far down the line where they have begun to have those sorts of problems. But you had some success in helping people with drug problems turn their life around. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
All right. And can you tell us, for the people out there who maybe need to hear a couple of success stories, can you give us a story of someone that when you met them, they were down and out and struggling with addiction, and they improved themselves over time?
Yes, by all means. One I can tell you about, obviously without naming names, was a young lady who was hopelessly addicted to meth, and so addicted that she was going out on the streets prostituting herself, constantly getting arrested for burglary and being under the influence, spending many months in jail, and really was a hopeless case. Her parents had tried everything to try and get her off the drugs, but it didn't help at all. And it seemed that she was really beyond hope. And her parents introduced me to her, and we talked about her addiction and what could happen. I actually talked to her while she was in jail facing some serious prison time. And she didn't realize that with the right treatment, the right kind of backup, she could avoid jail and go into a program which, one, would avoid her serving time in jail, but two, would cure that addiction. And that is what happened. After 1 year of this program, compared to, say, 3 years in state prison, she totally got off the drugs and now is a totally different person. The before and after is amazing. she's reconciled to her family, and she's counseling people because she knows what has to be gone through. And
what better example for people struggling with addiction as someone who has already overcome his or her own addiction?
yes,
right?
absolutely. And so she can't be told something. She knows how it works, and it's just great to see her. In fact, her sister was on the same path and is now a changed, better person and is almost finished with the program. And these are just amazing stories, and anyone can go through it. They just have to have the motive, the intent to get better, to get well, because it's a sickness. It's not something that makes that person bad. It's just we like it's been shown. Doctors, medical staff, there's too many opiates being prescribed these days, and people get stuck on this stuff.
Now, a lot of people think who are struggling with addiction that until or unless they get into trouble, there's really no program or help available for them. But you know for a fact that's not the case, correct?
No, there are some excellent programs right here on our doorstep. The one, if I may, is Teen Challenge. It's based in Reedley. It's the men's portion of the program, but there's not too far away the women's side of things. And that's a great program. It's free, there's no cost. The only criticism I have of the program is it's called Teen Challenge, which makes people think, well, it's only for teenagers. In fact, it's the opposite. It's 18-year-olds upwards.
Okay.
And they have an incredible record. There's very few recidivisms in their program, and they just, it's, as I say, it's free. It doesn't cost them at all. They raise all their money privately. It's supported by people like Jerry Dyer and others who know what a good program it is. So there's hope out there, and it's easy to find. They will interview people within a day or two of being advised that someone needs help.
And you don't, if you're thinking you need the help of a program like that, you don't need to wait until you get into serious trouble with the law. You can ask for help. That's
correct. Yeah, the only qualification is a desire to give up drugs. They don't have to have necessarily quit for months or so. They can come in still possibly having some of it in their system, but they have that help right there and then, and in really wonderful accommodation on the banks of the river there. It's a beautiful place, the King's River.
Now, maybe there's someone, Chris, who's watching this who is struggling with addiction, or has a loved one or a child who's struggling with addiction, and maybe they need some words of guidance or encouragement. If you had an opportunity to speak to that kind of person, and I'm giving it to you right now, what would you say to him or her?
I would say contact Teen Challenge. They're in the phone book. They're local, as I say, in Reedley. There's also somewhere locally here in the Tower District that they can go to. If they're not sure about that, feel free to call my office, and we'll direct them in the right way. They don't have to be in legal problems to get admitted. It's that they want to help people before that happens. So it's a simple process. It's like that advert goes. It just takes one phone call, and all their problems will be over, given that desire. It's a great program. So I would say don't wait too long till something bad happens, because otherwise it's a terminal disease. There's no cure for it without a program.
Thank you. Those are very profound words. So I wanted to switch up a little bit. I know that you now are at least in terms of your office, a resident of the Tower District, and that's very exciting news, right?
Yes, we're excited about that.
Where's your office?
We're actually on Van Ness Avenue in the Tower District. We moved into the office just in October last year, and we have a big old sign, the Caine law firm, that you can't miss there, but we love it here. It's great, and we couldn't have made a better move than what we did.
And so I understand that, and also in addition to moving to the Tower District, you renovated an older property here in the district, so you also have contributed to the community in that way, correct?
Yes, we saw a building, actually, I'm noticing it on the screen, that is 1365 North Van Ness Avenue. That's our building. There may be other photographs showing what it was like before we renovated it. There's an example of what it was like beforehand when we were putting a new roof on. There were 6 roofs on the place before we had to get those removed and changed. And it's just been an exciting time to see how this building has transformed itself into what we believe is a beautiful office, just made for the kind of work that we do. It's been a long process, though.
And so that's been it's been a long process, but it's been rewarding.
Yes.
To give a great old building a new face and a new life.
Yes.
And to help reinvigorate our community, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. It's been an exciting time. It's had its frustrations. It's been a costly exercise, but it's our commitment to the Tower District. We love it here. We've met new friends, and it's so convenient to be here. And there's all the shops and businesses around, and we've settled in very well.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show today, and I wish you nothing but the best of luck. Continue to move and shake in the Central Valley for many more years to come, and best of luck in your new office.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And we'll be right back with another guest after our next break. Welcome back to Valley Movers and Shakers. Once again, I'm Kevin Little, and I am now honored here to have with me is Todd McLeod. McLeod, sorry, who is an educator here in the Valley, lifelong resident of the Central Valley. Todd, welcome to the show.
Kevin, good to be here. Thanks for having me down.
Great. You're very welcome. So you're a lifelong resident of the Central Valley. Can you tell me how your family ended up here?
Yeah. How far back do you want to go?
Well, let's go back to your parents.
The interesting thing, because I am in education,
right?
And I love the history. We're McLeods, and the McLeods have a motto for their family, and it's "Hold fast." And
really?
Yeah, and if I could convey something to people, there's some really interesting research. I'm all about education and teaching, and how do we help people succeed. And I believe that the power of education to change lives is amazing. So we're going to get back to your question here in just a second. I'm just leading up to it. And I believe that as an individual improves their own life, you've made the world better just that much, like one person at a time. That's how we make the world a better place.
That's right.
And so Gandhi said, be the change. And so to the extent that we could each individually improve our own lives, or we could reach out and help other people improve their lives, one person at a time. That's how we affect and create change in the world to make the world a better place. And so the McLeod motto, hold fast. My dad grew up in Canada, north of Winnipeg. They were farmers. They lived in a home. They homesteaded their land back a couple generations.
Right.
They had a house with no running water, no indoor plumbing, no electricity, no gas. If you wanted to cook food, you had to chop firewood and burn the firewood in the stove. It was about as rustic as you could get.
Right.
And so my dad went through high school, Al McLeod, and then he wanted to go to university, but he couldn't pass the math exam.
Right.
And so that McLeod motto, hold fast, he figured out that in America he could get into university without going to having to take that math exam. And so he went to university in America. This is how we ended up in Fresno.
Sure.
And he liked school so much, and he did so well in sociology, he ended up getting his doctorate in sociology, and then he became a professor at Fresno State. So my parents moved here in '68. My dad's from Canada, my mom's from Texas.
So
And
that's quite a journey from rural Canada to being a professor in Fresno.
Yeah, super rural, super poor, super farming, to being a professor in Fresno. And this is where he got a job, and so this is where I was born and started out on Van Ness between Shields and Clinton.
And so you've stayed here in the valley, and you yourself have followed to some degree in your father's footsteps.
Correct.
And have gone into education, correct?
Yeah.
Where have you taught?
So I started out, got my graduate degree in business at Fresno State.
Okay.
And then taught adjunct at Fresno State for a couple of years while I was working private industry. And then a position came open at Fresno City College when I was kind of in between work. I left one thing and was kind of looking for the next thing. It was a 1-year temporary position at Fresno City College, full-time temporary. So I took that.
Right.
And after a year of teaching, I was hooked. I enjoyed it so much. So a full-time permanent position came up, and I've been at Fresno City College, tenured faculty since 2000. I'm in the business division, and I teach information systems. And so a lot of people don't understand quite where that falls, but you have the business kind of environment, and then you have computer science studies.
Right.
And right between business and computer science, that's where information systems sits. So
Okay.
we look at like how do you use computers to help business work more effectively. We do some programming, but we're not quite as hardcore analytical as the computer science people who get into the really high-end algorithms, machine learning, AI.
Okay.
We're more like the introductory
So
classes.
So as an educator, whether it's in information systems such as yourself, or sociology like your dad, or in any other subject, you just have such a potential to encourage young people to pursue their dreams. And I'm assuming that's something you find very rewarding in your line of work.
Yeah, absolutely. And interestingly, if you look at like what motivates us as humans, is it like money? Do we get motivated by money? Do we get motivated by helping each other? What is the strongest motivator? And so currently, what research shows is the strongest motivator is something called self-determination theory. And self-determination theory is made up of mastery, so the ability to gain mastery over a subject, to feel like, I'm a craftsperson of this one thing. Woodworking, being an attorney, like to just really be good at your craft, whatever it is, being a teacher. So to gain mastery, to have autonomy, to say what you work on, when you work on it, where you want to work on it, with whom you want to work on it. So mastery, autonomy, and then also community. And so being able to feel like you're important to a community, and also having the community be important to you. And so for me as an educator, it's like all three of those areas just, high marks across the board. So definitely like helping people, being important to the community. You can tell I'm an educator. I have all these theories.
That's right. Well, no, that's great. And, one of the things that you have found, or maybe you have found, is we've got a great burgeoning, tech community here in Fresno. Isn't that right?
Yeah, we do have a burgeoning tech community. I don't know if I would use the word great.
Okay.
Struggling actually is maybe a word that kind of comes to mind for me more. And I'm, anybody who's been in Fresno any period of time, that we have this issue of brain drain and brain flight, and people get educated. And as wonderful as Fresno is, there's also a lot of drawbacks. I mean, we're number one in a lot of bad categories.
Right.
We're number 2 in the nation for poverty. That just came out. Number 1's Bakersfield, straight down the street. You look at the air quality in Fresno, man, that's a big disadvantage. Failing metrics for air quality are 3 parts per billion for particulates, for ozone, right around there. Right. Fresno is regularly coming in at 90 to 120,
right.
30 to 40 times over the failing metric. And so a lot of people, right, like they get their education and then they think, I'm going to live somewhere with clean air that's not quite as poor. And with poverty comes all of those other social issues, right? Gangs, violence, drugs. So when you say we have a great burgeoning tech community, there's some good things happening.
Right.
But I fall into the word of like, actually, I think we're struggling. I hear people say, hey, the next Silicon Valley, I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah. But at least we see signs that the brain drain that you talked about, that at least to some extent, that trend is reversing, and people are doing,
Yeah.
or at least starting to do some exciting things with
Yeah.
technology and staying here.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that the case? I don't know. I haven't seen the data.
Okay.
Yeah. But hopefully, right? Like,
Right.
for me, it's like, let's look at what the issues actually are and, face reality as it is and what do
Sure.
we have to fix. And hopefully with what is being invented, because that's the amazing thing about technology and innovation.
Right.
And with what's being invented, electric cars, self-driving cars, hopefully we'll see that, it's gotten better and better and better
Right.
over the decades. You look at the 70s, the 80s, air quality's gotten better. But hopefully, I think if you get that air quality squared away, that'll make a big difference in Fresno.
Well, perfect. Well,
Yeah.
that's definitely a challenge that we need to undertake, and
Yeah.
that hopefully we will. Now, I understand that in addition to your teaching, that you are involved in an operation called Greater Commons.
Yeah.
And what's that?
Yeah. So we started Greater Commons, and we chose the name because it's for the greater common good, the greater common good. And the Commons was a public place where people could come and they would share that space. It would be the bandstand in the central part of town, where there could be concerts or music could be shared, or there could be theater, or people could read literature or poetry. And the Commons used to be the place where they'd come to graze sheep. So it was this common area that was for the benefit of the community. And so Greater Commons is for the greater common good. And it's an online educational platform that allows people to share their knowledge and their wisdom. And so regardless of what institution you're in, maybe you're in an academic institution, a school, maybe you're in a business, but how could it benefit your school or your business to be able to capture some of the knowledge of the individuals who are in your organization, whether it's a school or a business, capture that knowledge, and then share it with other individuals within your organization. And so what that might look like in a school, you might have a third grade teacher who's got really high metrics, and that third grade teacher is like, wow, you're really doing things well. Let's get a video camera and let's record a little course, just like, a couple of videos, and just record, like, how are you doing what you're doing? Like, if you're going to train, like if you came and you were going to work at City College and it was my job to be your mentor and train you, or vice versa if I was becoming an attorney.
That's right. Yeah,
you would say, Todd, okay, these are the things you got to know.
Right.
Right? And then you would be like, okay, this and this, and this is how you put together your court documents. And when you go before the judge, lose the t-shirt, put on your suit jacket, right? And you teach me the things I need to know to do that job well. And so in a business or in a school, you could have that one teacher say, this is how you do this job really well. This is what's really worked for me. And then all the other teachers could watch that. Or in a business, you could capture the knowledge of your business, people in each position. Hey, this is how you do this job. And it could be like how you onboard your employees. You could create little trainings. Here's this position. Here's the person who's best at it. Here's how they do it. When we hire somebody, we just sit them in front of the computer and they watch that 3 hours of video. And then we sit down with them and talk to them after they've kind of, got that onboarding. So it gives you an opportunity to share your knowledge, to pass that knowledge on to others. And that's one application, the organizational application.
Right. And so how long has Greater Commons been in existence, and how far have you guys gotten with your business plan so far?
Okay, so we're a brand new company, and we've been live for about a year. And right now we're looking for people who want to work with us, organizations, whether a school or a business, to help us capture their knowledge and then share it within their organization. And we're also looking for people who are just interested in sharing, even if you're not at a school or a business and you just want to share your knowledge with the rest of the world, you could do that. You could create a course on guitar playing. Like, this is how I play guitar. We're working with a local guitar player, Roger Perry, who played down here for decades at Butterfields, and he's capturing his knowledge and passing on everything he learned about playing guitar. Okay. And so then others could come and watch that. And then, like a book publisher, when people take his course, he'll receive a royalty on that. And so somebody pays $20, he gets a certain royalty out of that sale. So it's a nice way it's the knowledge economy, a nice way to make money from your knowledge.
Now, one of the things that comes to mind when you, Todd, describe your Greater Common is I think of how a lot of families, myself included, when our elders are getting on in years and now we have all this video technology, at least a lot of people I know, we like to sit down and just have conversations with our elders and record them, so that way, after, when they're not around anymore, we can still, the kids who maybe don't remember them when they grow up will still be able to hear their stories and learn from their knowledge and know a little bit more about their experience going forward. It seems like there's a similarity in the concept of greater common with that. Or maybe, am I right?
No, I absolutely think so. I think that knowledge is one of the greatest wasted resources that's out there, and having a way for people to easily share, the things that they've learned in their life, whatever it might be, how to do this job, how to use Microsoft Excel, how to play the guitar, or, wisdom from our elders. Any of that could be great. Yeah.
And I think if I'm hearing you right, greater common is not just for people who consider themselves techies. Like, I'm not a techie.
Yeah.
It's for anyone who feels like they have something that they can share with others.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
My next course is going to be a course on meditation.
Okay.
Because for many years of my life, I was practicing meditation and very interested in meditation. So that's going to be my next course.
So tell someone if they feel like they have some knowledge to share, how do they get on board? What do they do?
Yeah, so just come to Greater Commons, and we have a course that teaches you how to create courses. I started teaching online in 1997 at Fresno State. And then I studied online education at UC San Diego, postgraduate work. And then I helped run, and I taught in the online teacher training program in State Center Community College District, where we trained all the college faculty how to teach online. And so we have a course on Greater Commons that you could take, which teaches you how to create courses and kind of walks you through, like, what kind of a camera do you need? Like, I'm just going to grab this right here quickly. Like, this is so easy today. I had this recording here, but this is my cell phone. And then I have this, I got this off of Amazon. It's a little tripod, about $45 on Amazon. And then a $7 part right here. And you'll learn all this in the Greater Commons course. But then you just put your cell phone up. And while it's on, we'll just get it on here for a second. Put it up, and while it's on, you could just set it down and you record. And then that's kind of the basics of it. And you just teach to your camera like this, and then you could bring it into editing software and edit out the parts where you're like, okay, in the middle there, I don't think that needed to be there. You can pull that out.
Right.
Or if you're working at your computer and you want to show people things online, you could also, we teach you how to capture your screen and then edit that all together, like from here to the screen. And Kevin, I've taught hundreds of thousands of students around the world over the last couple of years, hundreds of thousands of students. And that's when I realized the power to reach. Like, I've had students in 198 different countries. One of my students recently, because I teach programming classes, he emailed me. He said, "Thank you so much, Todd. I went from a $50,000 a year job to $140,000 a year as a back-end developer for Pizza Hut."
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, to share some of your successes with us. Tell us some more. Tell us some other folks who've benefited either from this platform or just from your teaching here locally. Some people who have really gone on and done wonderful things.
That's the only story that comes to mind right now. But, I have a whole list of feedback from students. It's like pages and pages long, like maybe 40, 50 pages of things people have just written to me from taking my classes. So here's another one. Another one just came back to me. So I had a student who we were communicating back and forth, and he said, "I've got to work, why I have gas in the generator." And I said, "Oh, you don't have electricity?" He goes, "No, our town's been being bombed, and so we don't have electricity right now." He's like, here he is in some city where he's being bombed, and he's still watching courses online trying to learn to improve his life, but he has to use a generator to do it.
Well, that's amazing. That's a very touching story.
And then there was another kid from Nigeria, and so I've been in communication with him recently, and he just recently reached out and was like, "Thank you so much for the different things you've shared." And so it's just like people all over the world.
And all these people are benefiting from a company that started right here in the Central Valley.
Yeah. Well, a lot of my students were taught when I was just teaching individually on my own, and now we have this platform for everybody.
Well, that's fantastic. Yeah. That's fantastic. Yeah. So, Todd, one of the things that I like to do on this show is I like to give my guests a chance to talk not only about their business, but something else that is very important to them? Any life lessons that this is your opportunity to kind of let us know some things that you've learned in life that you feel are important to pass on. Maybe not skills, but just philosophy.
Yeah.
What do you think? If you had a chance, and you do,
Yeah.
to talk to the audience here and tell them some of the things that you've learned that you'd like to pass on to them to help them become more positive, more successful, what could you share with them?
Well, I have an entire YouTube channel where I actually share these thoughts all the time, and it's I think about it as wisdom, motivation, and inspiration, which sounds kind of highfalutin, you know. And but if you just go to Google and YouTube, Todd McLeod YouTube, you'll find my YouTube channel. And so I have hundreds of videos up there where, because for me it's just fun. I started out in high school, and I was a nationally recognized for making documentaries for high school students. I'd go to competitions, and I made it to national competitions. And so I went to UCLA thinking I'd study film and television, but graduated with a degree in economics.
Right.
And but so I still love film and just that creative process and bringing something into the world. So I'm always making those videos. You can check them out there. And if there's anything, if I had to single any one thing out, just like right here on the spot, one of the first things that comes to mind for me is just trying to help other people and focusing upon other people and what is it that I could do to be of service to others.
It's hard to stay in a bad mood when you get involved and really get into helping somebody else. It's almost like an upper, isn't it?
Yeah. And so like, one of the most meaningful things that's ever occurred to me in my life is becoming a parent. And when you become a parent, it's like there is no escape, right? Like you are showing up. There's like nobody else in the world. I'll wake up for at 3:30 in the morning,
Right. It's the only job from which there is no vacation.
Yeah, and walk around the block with them, right? Anybody else, I'm like, I'm sleeping, go away, right? But 3:30 in the morning, you need me to walk around the block with you? Let's go, right? And just putting oneself aside to help others, that's a really good thing. And then the next thing I'll say is that, Kevin, for the majority of my life, I was depressed and I was anxious. And so that can be surprising for people to learn. My family went through some really tough times when I was a kid, and it spun me, and it took me a long time to come out of it. And at a certain point in my life, I realized, okay, I have a problem. I'm depressed, I'm anxious, and I can't solve my problem on my own. Those are like two huge things that I had to admit to myself. And I had to admit, that, okay, I'm struggling and I need some help. And so at that point, I sought out a therapist. And I had kind of a stigma against that for some reason. And now I see therapists kind of like a wise village elder. And why would we not go sit down and talk with somebody who could teach us how to live our life with less suffering and more happiness? Like, here's an individual, a therapist, who they have studied how you live your life with less suffering and more happiness. So like going to a therapist and being able to overcome that, I'm now on the other side of that. And so if there's, the previous guest was just sharing about people who've struggled in their lives with drug addictions and, how do you get out of that cycle? And so knowing that transformation and change is possible and that there is a better way to live your life with less suffering and more happiness, and then just putting yourself on that path. Like say, okay, I'm going to try to figure out, like that message right there, how I live my life with more happiness. And then just finding the resources, like setting the goal, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to find a way. Like, who would say no to that?
Nobody.
I want to live with more happiness.
That's right.
Right?
Well, we're going to have to leave it right there. I wish we had some more time.
Yeah.
But Todd, thanks for coming on the show, and thanks for sharing your positivity with us.
For sure. All right, good to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that just about wraps up our first show. Stay positive until next week. Keep moving, keep shaking.
CentralValleyTalk.com